Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into Brené Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection. It's really struck a chord with so many people.
It really has. And our goal here is basically to pull out the core insights for you, give you a kind of shortcut to understanding how embracing who you are, imperfections and all, can lead to a much more fulfilling life.
Exactly.
Mm.
A shortcut to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Because Brené Brown covers, so much ground. We're talking resilience, shame, authenticity.
Self-compassion, gratitude, creativity, play, rest, even meaningful work and connection. It's a lot.
It is. So our mission, if you like, is to kind of weave all these threads together, give you some practical wisdom, maybe some surprising takes on how to live what she calls a wholehearted life.
Right. Without overwhelming you, we want to get straight to the heart of it.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole journey towards wholehearted living for Brené Brown. It sounds like it started with a pretty big personal moment, yeah.
Oh, definitely. It seems the big catalyst was when she basically contrasted two ways of living. She made this list.
A list. Yeah, on one side, she put her personal don'ts, things like trying to be perfect all the time, numbing out feelings, trying too hard to fit in, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And on the other side, the do's like really embracing love, feeling like you belong, experiencing joy, seeing it laid out like that.
That's been quite a wake-up call.
It sounds like it. She wasn't really, living and loving with her whole heart.
And this wasn't just a fleeting thought, right? This kicked off some serious digging.
Absolutely. Huge digging. By 2008, she apparently had like 3 massive tubs full of notebooks and journals from years of research she'd already done.
Wow.
And then she launched into new research specifically for this book. It was a massive undertaking, really trying to understand how we connect or don't connect with our whole hearts.
So fundamentally, the Gifts of Imperfection is about figuring out what gets in the way of that wholeheartedness.
Exactly. What blocks us?
Yeah.
And then, crucially, how do we build up the resilience to overcome those barriers?
And the book uses these 10 guideposts. Yeah, that's the structure. 10 guideposts for the journey. And they're not just theory. She offers daily practices, shares personal stories, really tries to define the key concepts.
That definition part seems important. You mentioned words like love, belonging.
Mm-hmm.
They can feel a bit vague sometimes, can't they? Kind of gauzy, as she puts it.
That's such a key point she makes. We throw these big words around love, authenticity, belonging, but what do they actually mean in practice? She saw it as vital to define them in ways that are accessible, and actionable, things you can actually do.
And how did she land on these definitions? Was it just her opinion?
No, not at all. It came directly from her research, listening really closely to how the people she interviewed actually experienced these things.
Oh, okay.
So for some concepts like love, she felt she needed to craft new definitions based on what she was hearing. For others, like play, she found existing work, like Dr. Stuart Brown's research, that really nailed what her participants were describing.
It's interesting. She actually encourages people to discuss these meanings, even argue about them a bit.
Right, because she thinks that wrestling with the meaning is way more valuable than just passively accepting some fuzzy notion. It helps us build a shared language.
For common understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having that common language is, she argues, pretty fundamental if you want to live wholeheartedly.
Okay, something else that jumped out at me was this idea of digging deep. Her view on that seemed to change quite a bit.
It really did. It's a great example of her own process, I think. Initially, for her, digging deep was that classic thing, right? Just gritting your teeth, pushing through when you're exhausted or totally overwhelmed.
Yeah, the power through mode. Many of us know that one.
Totally. And she even wrote about deciding she needed to stop relying on that brute force approach.
Just stopping wasn't the whole picture either.
Apparently not. She realized she needed something more sustainable, more nurturing maybe. So she went back to her research data to find a more, wholehearted way to handle tough times.
And that led to this new idea of digging deep.
Yes. It became an acronym. Get deliberate, inspired, and going. So instead of just pushing harder, it's about pausing.
Okay, deliberate how?
Get deliberate about what's really going on. What do you actually need? Then get inspired. Find something that reconnects you, maybe reminds you of your values or purpose.
Then get going.
And then get going, yeah. Take action from that more informed, more inspired place. It's shifting from just reacting and pushing to mindfully choosing how to re-engage.
Can you give an example? Like, how would that work day to day?
Okay, sure. Imagine you're stuck in that That internet fog, mindlessly scrolling,
Yeah.
feeling drained but not really resting.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right. So the old way might be to just force yourself back to work feeling awful. The new dig deep would be get deliberate. Okay, what's happening? I feel disconnected, maybe overwhelmed. Then get inspired. What would actually nourish me right now? Maybe reading a chapter of a book or stepping outside for 5 minutes.
Oh,
And then get going, actually do that nourishing thing.
yeah.
It's about intentional self-care leading to renewed energy, not just white-knuckling it.
That makes sense. Now, the title itself, The Gifts of Imperfection, courage, compassion, and connection. These three seem like the absolute bedrock of this wholehearted idea.
They really are. They're presented as the outcomes, the gifts you receive when you embrace imperfection. She tells the story about a really difficult speaking gig.
Right, where someone in the audience was giving her a hard time.
Yeah, seemed disruptive, critical, and her immediate reaction, her impulse, was what she calls hustling for worthiness. That feeling of, I need to win this person over, prove I'm good enough.
That need to perform to feel worthy.
Exactly, believing you have to earn love and belonging rather than knowing you're inherently worthy of it.
And how did that play out? Not well, I gather.
Not well at all. Afterwards, she describes falling into a shame storm, just this intense wave of feeling inadequate, embarrassed, self-critical.
Oof, been there.
Right. And it was in that really difficult place that she realized how vital it was to reach out. She talks specifically about a call with her sister, Ashley.
That story really stands out. It shows compassion in action, doesn't it?
It really does, because Ashley didn't try to fix it, didn't say, oh, don't be silly. She just listened. She shared her own vulnerability. She just sat with her in it.
Created that safe space.
Exactly. And Brené felt both totally seen in her messiness, but also completely loved and accepted. That experience really cemented for her that courage, compassion, and connection are what emerge when we dare to be real, dare to be imperfect.
And it's interesting how she talks about courage, not as being fearless, but being vulnerable while still hoping for good things.
That's a really key distinction, isn't it? She admits she used to downplay good news or potential opportunities. Like pretend she wasn't that excited just in case it didn't work out. A defense mechanism.
To avoid disappointment.
Right. But she realized that also meant she couldn't fully experience the joy when things did go well, and it kept her kind of isolated. So true courage for her became being able to say, you know what, I'm really hopeful about this, or I'm excited.
And then being able to share the outcome, good or bad.
Yes, with people who support you, being able to share the excitement and also share the disappointment if it comes, knowing you'll be met with empathy.
Let's dive a bit more into compassion. The book says it's a relationship between equals. What does that mean exactly?
It means it's not about pity or feeling sorry for someone from a position of strength. It's about recognizing our shared humanity, acknowledging that we all struggle, we all have our own darkness, as she puts it.
So it's about connecting through shared vulnerability.
Precisely. It's being willing to be in the darkness with someone, like her sister was, without needing to switch on the lights or pretend it's not dark. Just being present. And crucially, this applies to self-compassion, too.
Treating yourself like you treat a friend.
Basically, yes. Asking yourself, what would I say to a friend going through this? It's often so different from how we talk to ourselves.
Okay, but how do things like boundaries and holding people accountable fit with being compassionate? They sound almost opposite.
That's a really common question, and it's such a critical point in the book. She argues very strongly that you absolutely can be compassionate and accepting while also holding people accountable for their behavior.
How does that work?
The key is separating the person from the behavior. You address what they did, you set limits on hurtful actions, but you don't condemn who they are.
So what you did wasn't okay, rather than you're a bad person.
Exactly. And she actually argues that failing to set boundaries makes true compassion harder.
How so?
Because if you don't set boundaries, you end up feeling resentful, used, mistreated, and then eventually you're more likely to lash out and attack the person, not just the behavior you needed to address in the first place.
Ah, okay. So boundaries actually enable compassion in a way.
Yes, she sees boundaries and accountability as necessary foundations for practicing acceptance and compassion long-term.
Let's talk connection, another huge theme. In our hyper-connected world, you'd think we'd have this sorted.
You would think, but she raises a really interesting question. Is all this technology becoming an imposter for connection?
An imposter.
Yeah, like we might be communicating constantly, texting, posting, emailing, but does it actually leave us feeling truly seen and heard? that deeper sense of belonging. Maybe not always.
So confusing quantity of communication with quality of connection.
That seems to be the concern. And another big barrier she identifies is this myth of self-sufficiency.
The idea that we should be able to handle everything ourselves.
Right, that cultural pressure to be independent, to not need anyone, it makes it hard to ask for help. But also, she points out, it makes it hard to truly receive help or love with an open heart.
Why is receiving so important?
Because connection is fundamentally reciprocal. It's a flow. If you can't receive support or kindness without judgment or feeling like you owe something, then your ability to give authentically and open-heartedly is also limited. The energy has to flow both ways.
That's a powerful idea, the energy flowing both ways. Now, self-love also comes up. And it sounds like even she wasn't totally sold on it initially.
No, she admits she kind of resisted it. And apparently, it sparked quite a debate when she brought it up on her blog back then.
So what did her research lead her to conclude? What is self-love in this context?
It boiled down to a few key things. Trusting ourselves, treating ourselves with respect, basic respect, and being kind and, importantly, affectionate toward ourselves.
Affectionate, that's an interesting word choice.
Isn't it? It implies warmth, tenderness, and it really highlights the contrast with how we often treat ourselves. Think about the harsh inner critic so many of us have.
Yeah, that internal monologue can be brutal.
Totally. She makes the point that you'd never talk to someone you love the way you sometimes talk to yourself. That constant negativity just erodes any sense of self-worth or self-love.
So self-love and self-acceptance aren't just nice-to-haves.
She argues they're essentials, priorities, not optional extras for wholehearted living.
And she connects this directly to loving others, doesn't she? The idea that you can't really love others more than you love yourself.
Yes, that was a really significant finding for her. It's not about choosing one over the other. Our capacity for loving and connecting with others is deeply intertwined with how we love and accept ourselves.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to authenticity. Showing up as your real self. Sounds simple, but scary, especially when you worry about what people think.
Oh, that tension is right at the core of it. She tells this story about preparing for a talk and feeling this immense pressure to be super researchy, really academic and impressive.
Trying to fit a certain mold.
Exactly. And a friend had to remind her, essentially, your best work comes from your heart, not just your head. Plus, she mentions how the fear from that bad speaking experience we talked about earlier could easily sabotage her current efforts to be authentic.
It's like a constant pull between being genuine and seeking approval, isn't it?
It really is. That hustling for worthiness again, feeling like you have to perform or shapeshift to be accepted. Authenticity, as she defines it, is consciously choosing to be honest, to let yourself be seen, flaws and all, even when you're battling self-doubt or shame.
Sounds risky.
It is risky. There's vulnerability involved. But she suggests there's an even bigger risk in not being authentic. If you build up walls so thick that you're immune to criticism,
You also become immune to connection.
that's the idea. You can't connect deeply if you're not being real. So authentic courage means showing up as yourself, not pretending you don't care what others think. Vulnerability is the price of admission for connection.
This leads really nicely into the psycheia between healthy striving and perfectionism. They can look similar on the surface, can't they?
Oh, absolutely. They get confused all the time. But the motivation is totally different. Healthy striving is about you. How can I improve? How can I learn and grow? It's internal.
Okay. And perfectionism.
Perfectionism is all about them. What will they think? Will they approve? Will they judge me? It's completely other-focused, driven by this deep fear of shame, judgment, and blame. It's believing your worth is tied to your performance and other people's opinions.
And ironically, perfectionism doesn't actually lead to better outcomes, does it?
No, quite the opposite, according to the research she cites. It actually tends to hamper success. It's linked with depression, anxiety, addiction, and this thing she calls life paralysis.
Life paralysis.
Yeah, basically being so afraid of not doing something perfectly that you don't do it at all. Missing opportunities, staying stuck. Because the core belief is self-destructive. If I look perfect and do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize shame.
But it backfires.
Massively. Because the pursuit of the impossible increases the likelihood you'll feel shame and blame yourself when you inevitably fall short. It's a trap.
So what's the way out of that trap? Self-compassion seems key.
Absolutely. It's presented as the primary antidote to perfectionism. She draws heavily on Dr. Kristen Neff's work here, highlighting three main components.
Okay, what are they?
First is self-kindness. Basically, treating yourself with warmth and understanding when you mess up or feel inadequate instead of beating yourself up.
Like you would a friend.
Exactly. The second is common humanity, recognizing that everyone struggles, everyone makes mistakes. Suffering and imperfection are part of being human, not some personal failing that isolates you.
That sounds really helpful in combating shame.
It is. And the third element is mindfulness, which here means acknowledging painful thoughts and feelings without judgment, but also without getting totally consumed by them, not over-identifying with the emotion.
So notice it, accept it's there, but don't let it define you.
Precisely. These three together, self-kindness, common humanity, mindfulness, form the foundation of self-compassion.
And this isn't just about feeling better yourself, right? It has wider effects.
Definitely. When you practice self-compassion, you build up this internal resource, this reservoir, that allows you to be more compassionate towards others, too. It fosters authenticity, strengthens connections, and importantly, kids learn self-compassion by seeing how we treat ourselves.
That's a big one. And she applies the DD deep idea here too.
She does. Get deliberate, maybe use tools like Neff's self-compassion scale to see where you stand.
Yeah.
Get inspired, understand the benefits, why it matters, and get going. Actively practice it. Make it a habit.
Okay, resilience. Building a resilient spirit, another huge piece of the puzzle. What did she find makes people resilient?
Her research pointed to 5 pretty consistent factors. One was being resourceful, good at problem solving. Another was being willing to ask for help, leaning on support systems.
Not trying to do it all alone.
Right. Third was a belief in their own ability to cope, to manage difficult feelings. Fourth was having that social support network. And fifth was a feeling of connection, being part of something.
And then there was something a bit unexpected, wasn't there? About spirituality.
Yes. That emerged quite strongly, and maybe surprisingly for some. It wasn't about specific religions necessarily, but a broader sense of spirituality.
Defined how?
Defined as a belief in connection, maybe a power greater than oneself, something grounded in love and compassion. This sense of being interconnected seemed to be a real anchor for resilient people.
And hope was crucial too.
Absolutely, but not just wishful thinking. Hope, in this context, involves setting goals, being flexible, persevering through setbacks, tolerating disappointment, being determined, and believing in your own ability to make things happen, your agency.
She makes a point about the difference between agency and entitlement, right?
Yes, a really important one. Agency is, I know I can do this, or I can figure this out. Entitlement is more like, I deserve this outcome just because I want it. When you mix entitlement with a fear of disappointment and performance pressure, that's a recipe for hopelessness.
And hopelessness is dangerous ground.
Very, because it leads to feeling powerless. And she defines power positively here, not as power over, but as the ability to affect change in your own life.
Okay, let's talk about numbing. That feeling of wanting to check out when things get uncomfortable or vulnerable.
It's such a common coping mechanism, isn't it? And it shows up in so many ways: overeating, drinking too much, working constantly, zoning out online, just staying frantically busy so you don't have to feel.
Anything to avoid the discomfort. And this ties into shame again.
Directly, she revisits the crucial semio between guilt and shame. Guilt is, I did something bad. Shame is, I am bad. Guilt can motivate change. Shame just corrodes your sense of self-worth and your belief that change is even possible.
So understanding what triggers our shame is important.
Essential. What are those internal messages, that negative self-talk? What are the external triggers, maybe stuff in the media, cultural expectations, things people say? Recognizing them is the first step to building shame resilience.
And how do we typically react when shame hits?
She mentions Dr. Harriet Lerner's work here, identifying 3 common patterns: moving away, hiding, withdrawing, keeping secrets; moving toward trying to appease and please others; or moving against getting angry, blaming others, trying to regain control through aggression.
But shame resilience is about a different response.
Yes. It's about recognizing shame when it shows up, taking a breath, reacting with intention rather than instinct, practicing self-compassion right in that moment, and then crucially, reaching out to someone trusted and sharing your experience, speaking your shame.
Owning your story.
Exactly. She says owning our stories, the messy parts included, is the key to living fully without that constant nagging fear of not being good enough.
Gratitude and joy feel related, but maybe not always easy to access. Especially joy.
They are deeply connected. She found that practicing gratitude actually helps us cultivate more joy. It trains us to notice the good. But gratitude isn't passive.
What do you mean?
It requires action, practice, like keeping a gratitude journal, doing short gratitude meditations, consciously looking for things to appreciate. It involves verbs.
Oh, okay. And why is joy sometimes vulnerable?
Because allowing ourselves to feel truly joyful can feel risky. What if it doesn't last? What if something bad happens? Anxiety and fear can creep in, often disguised as scarcity, this feeling that there isn't enough good to go around, or that if we fully embrace joy, we're setting ourselves up for a bigger fall.
That belief that maybe if we don't get too happy, the hard times won't hurt as much.
Exactly. But she argues that's a false belief. It doesn't protect us, it just robs us of the joy that could actually sustain us through the hard times.
So practicing gratitude helps build that resilience tank for joy.
That's the idea. Build the muscle of noticing the good, appreciating it. Again, she offers a dig deep. Get deliberate set intentions, like her vowel check exercise. Get inspired, connect gratitude to meaning and resilience. Get going, make it a daily practice.
Okay, intuition and faith. These might feel a bit less concrete than some of the other guideposts. Did she find them just as important?
Absolutely. She admits she was even a bit surprised by how central they were for people living wholeheartedly. She defines intuition pretty simply: our ability to know something directly without conscious reasoning, that gut feeling.
Trusting your gut.
Yeah. And faith, based on her research, wasn't about dogma, but about embracing mystery, finding the courage to believe in things you can't necessarily see, and developing the strength to let go of the need for certainty, especially when things feel uncertain.
That distinction between faith and certainty seems key.
It really is. She suggests that often fundamentalism or extremism isn't really about faith, it's about clinging to certainty because uncertainty feels too scary. Faith embraces the mystery.
So trusting our inner knowing rather than constantly looking outside for answers.
Exactly. Less polling everyone you know, more tuning into your own wisdom. And yes, there's a dig deep for this too. Get deliberate about listening to that inner voice. Get inspired by embracing mystery. And get going using tools that help, maybe like the Serenity Prayer.
Creativity often feels like something only artists have,
Yeah.
but she pushes back on that, right?
Hard. She talks about her own childhood creativity and how it kind of faded away under the pressure to achieve and conform. Society often dismisses creativity as frivolous or self-indulgent, not real work.
But her research showed otherwise.
Completely. She identifies three big truths. One, creativity isn't just for a select few, it's inherent in everyone. Two, using our creativity is how we make our unique contribution. And three, it's not optional, it's essential for making meaning in our lives.
And how broadly does she define creativity?
Very broadly, it's not just painting or writing novels. It's cooking, gardening, singing, decorating, problem solving, anything where you're making something new, expressing yourself. Making art in whatever form that takes for you.
And connects to letting go of comparison.
Yes, because if creativity is about expressing your unique self, then comparison becomes meaningless. Your originality can't be compared.
Okay, play and rest. These feel like the first things to go when life gets busy.
They absolutely are. And she admits she initially overlooked play in her research. It didn't seem serious enough, but then she realized just how vital it was for the wholehearted people she studied.
And she brings in Dr. Stuart Brown's work here.
Yes, his research is groundbreaking. Play literally shapes our brains, helps us develop empathy, navigate social groups. It's fundamental to creativity and innovation. He famously said the opposite of play isn't work, it's depression.
Wow, that puts it in perspective.
Doesn't it? And rest is just as critical. It's a biological need like play. She points out the serious health risks of not getting enough sleep, chronic diseases, impaired thinking. It's not trivial.
Yet we wear exhaustion like a badge of honor sometimes.
Right. That hustle culture mentality where being tired means you're important or productive. Sleep is seen as a luxury. She calls these beliefs the gremlins that keep us from prioritizing rest and play.
So choosing to rest and play is almost countercultural.
It really is. It takes conscious effort to schedule downtime, to see play and rest not as rewards, but as necessities. That's the dig deep for this one. Get deliberate about scheduling it, inspired by understanding why it's crucial, and actually making it happen.
Meaningful work. This sounds like more than just a job description.
Much more. People described it in different ways: a calling, a purpose, feeling like they're contributing something. It involves this complex mix of using your unique gifts and talents, maybe connecting to something spiritual, figuring out how to make a living, dealing with commitments, and those supposed tos.
The supposed tos.
Yeah, those messages we absorb about what kind of work is valuable or what we should be doing versus what actually brings us alive. And self-doubt plays a huge role here too.
So meaningful work might not always be the thing that pays the most or looks the most prestigious.
Exactly. It requires commitment, maybe even sacrifice sometimes. And what feels meaningful is deeply personal. You can't let culture define it for you. Overcoming self-doubt, questioning those that posters, asking, where did I even get that idea? That's
The
key.
Howard Thurman quote she uses is amazing.
Oh, it's fantastic. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Just nails it, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, the final guidepost. Cultivating laughter, song, and dance. Why these specifically?
Because historically and across cultures, these are fundamental ways humans express emotion, share stories, build community, and experience joy together. Think about celebrations, rituals. They often involve these things.
That idea of collective ecstasy she mentioned.
Yeah. Yes, from Barbara Ehrenreich. That shared joy, especially when things feel scary or uncertain, is incredibly powerful. It connects us emotionally and spiritually, reminds us we're not alone. Laughter, especially, helps build shame resilience when we can laugh with each other about our imperfections.
But these things can also feel really vulnerable, can't they? Singing out loud, dancing freely.
Hugely vulnerable. The shame triggers are often about looking awkward, sounding bad, being seen as goofy or uncool. We worry about judgment.
So we hold back.
We hold back. But she argues that denying ourselves these forms of passionate self-expression is a kind of self-betrayal. It dampens our spirit.
That Hopi saying is beautiful. To watch us dance is to hear our hearts speak.
Isn't it? It captures that deep communication beyond words. Choosing vulnerability, choosing to laugh or sing or dance, even if you feel awkward, is valued over pretending to be cool and detached.
You can really feel how this research was also a personal journey for Brené Brown.
Oh, absolutely. You sense her own transformation woven throughout the book. She talks about moving from being stuck in fear and judgment herself to embracing these gifts of imperfection. It was clearly a profound, sometimes difficult process for her, a breakdown spiritual awakening, she calls it.
And that funny story she tells about someone saying she doesn't look like a researcher.
It's great, isn't it? It just highlights how we have these stereotypes and how her path was definitely not traditional, dropping in and out of college, working various jobs. But her embrace of qualitative research, really listening to people's stories, allowed her to uncover these deep truths about connection, shame, and what it takes to live wholeheartedly,
It started with connection, but took that detour into shame.
which turned out to be the crucial detour, revealing that we can't fully understand connection without understanding the things that get in the way, like shame, fear, and perfectionism. The whole book is really about learning to value and cultivate the opposites of those things.
So pulling it all together, the big message from the Gifts of Imperfection seems to be that leaning into our imperfections, being vulnerable, that's actually the road to courage, compassion, and real connection.
That's exactly it. It's not about fixing flaws, it's about embracing our humanity, and that leads to that richer, more authentic, wholehearted life she describes.
And hopefully through this deep dive, you, our listener, have gotten a really solid handle on these key ideas, a way to access this wisdom without wading through everything yourself.
Yeah, a thorough but efficient look at some really powerful concepts.
We definitely encourage you to maybe pick one or two of these ideas that really hit home for you and explore them further. Think about which of the 10 guideposts feels most relevant to where you are right now.
And that leads us to a final thought for you to mull over. Reflect on which of the don'ts that the author initially identified, those tendencies towards perfectionism, numbing, seeking certainty, and so on, might be most subtly influencing your own life. And consider what small, intentional step you could take today towards embracing one of the corresponding do's, perhaps choosing love over fitting in, or allowing yourself a moment of joy.